A very special guest with me, Umang Bedi of Adobe. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Shaili. Pleasure's all mine.
No, it's good to have you with us here. Well, it's also a very, very nice day, I can say, that the sun is just about trying to peep in. How often do you get yourself out on the course in the morning?
Not as much as what I would really wished for, but it's been a while since I played golf. It's been a lot of time commitment in terms of the kind of effort that one has to spend in terms of number of hours. So I've been trying to balance my work life and travel, and I'd love to get out a lot more.
How has it been at Adobe? I mean, technology is changing every day, and there's global pressure for innovation. How hard is it for Adobe to keep up with the speed and the desire of consumers, particularly in the Indian context, which you are in charge of?
Yeah, so Adobe is truly thriving this year onwards, and even for the last 27 years since we've existed, on the whole concept of innovation. So everything that we do, whether it's our products or our go-to-market strategy on commercial innovation, innovation is at the core. And today what we're doing is really focusing on two areas. We pride ourselves with being a true leader in the whole arena of creating content.
Yeah.
And we're also helping digital marketers to run their e-marketing services today. So every time we go out into market, we're looking at innovating on the digital media and digital marketing side. We're looking at innovating on the customer side. And of course, we're looking at innovating on the shareholders and our brand side as well. But at the end of the day, all of this innovation is driven by employees. And employees are really at the heart of that infrastructure.
Okay, interesting. Employees are at the heart of infrastructure. That should be really heartening comments coming in at a time when people are striving to keep up their jobs and it's getting harder in the market in general. But we'll talk about that. But for Umang, when did golf happen? And, where between your tasks at Adobe did you find it?
So about 5 years ago, I went to buy a book for a friend of mine who's an avid golfer. I just walked into a bookstore. It was his birthday. And I happened to get my hands on this book called The Greatest Game Ever Played.
Oh, wow. That's
Harry Warden. It's a great book by Mark Frost. So I just picked up another copy for myself and started reading it, and I loved it. It was an absolutely brilliant book. A great movie came on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
And after that, I went on to the course and met a really smart, really good coach called Gaurav Diwan in Bangalore.
Bangalore.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
long-haired fellow. I played with him a couple of times.
He is brilliant in terms of how he goes about teaching you the technicalities of the game. So that's when I started about 4 years ago.
So when did Adobe happen to you, Umang?
So Adobe happened just about a year ago, and it's been the most wonderful experience in a truly amazing company.
Right, but you were with Intuit before this.
Yes, I was the managing director for Intuit in India and emerging markets for the last couple of years before joining Adobe recently.
What was the shift like, though?
The shift was very interesting. So, in Intuit, I was really serving small businesses and consumers. And when I started talking to the execs at Adobe, I was fascinated. One of the most amazing facets of the job at Adobe has been the fact that I think it's a truly global company. So more than 50% of our revenues come outside of North America.
Right.
And the way the company is structured, which I found fascinating, was it's almost like you're running an entrepreneurial venture of your own. And there's a complete flexibility to run your business with a high amount of accountability. So the way I looked at the last 9 months of an experience was all about getting the investment plans together, looking at the go-to-market strategies, realigning some areas of our business, and focusing on some core verticals like telecom, financial services, e-tail and retail, which you talked about, and ITES.
Okay.
Apart from going broader into global markets, into broader markets where we are seeing demand.
So you're from Bangalore and you visit Delhi very often, particularly Noida, to keep up with business. What part of the business are you primarily handling, and what are the challenges that you're facing right now in it?
I look at the total go-to-market for Adobe in South Asia, and we're really focused on 3 lines of business there. We carry the entire suite of Adobe offerings, but our core focus is a revamped energy and focus around the whole enterprise space in India. And we see the IT investments increasing multifold in telecom, in IT and ITES, banking, financial services, and retail. So there is a core thrust area in terms of a sharper focus with core teams being set up on a vertical structure to address that market. On the other side, we also are going deeper into newer cities, so tier 2 markets, where we're seeing increased demand. And that's new, because a couple of years ago, that was never the case in India. So even today, when you enter a small photographic booth, where they're clicking photographs, more often than not, they're using Photoshop to edit the software. So there's a dramatic shift in the way we're consuming technology. We're still highly underpenetrated.
As a country, hugely.
Huge underpenetration. And there are tremendous opportunities in education, healthcare, pharmaceuticals.
But are these opportunities also translating into potential revenue models?
Oh, they are. One of the innovations that we are driving out of India is e-learning. And we've set up new e-learning models wherein we're partnering with universities, partnering with the government in some cases, to look at how can we provide e-learning tools, e-learning content and e-learning software to broaden the base of learning in the country. So that's one example where we are developing revenue models around that space.
What is the story within emerging markets? Where does India stand there? Does it stand anywhere?
India is today, in my view and the view of all Adobe executives, one of the hottest growing markets for us. India is very important for us because 10 years ago we started a hub of innovation and research and development out of Noida. And we expanded that over the next few years to Bangalore as well. So almost 1/3 of the entire research and development for Adobe happens out of India. And it's not only co-partnering with the US on products, it's actually developing new products out of India, filing patents. So we've filed about 200 patents in the last couple of years out of the country. And there's also a tremendous focus from a market opportunity standpoint. So if you look at the growth within the businesses, I think the emerging markets, and India especially, are the only ones that are really experiencing close to double-digit growth and more.
Apple came to the market and shifted a lot. And once it came up with the iPhone and the iPad, life has become an app. It's no longer about software. It's an app.
Right.
Is that something that Adobe has consciously built in its own thinking, that you've got to think the app way now?
So, we have been in this journey now of reimagining the entire creative process. And we believe that the creative process is going to begin with designers and developers who are out there in the field with these devices in their hands. These devices are getting more powerful. These devices were earlier being used for content consumption. And today it's all about how we can enable them with the power of apps. So we launched a couple of apps that do a whole lot of things, including designing a whole website, laying it all out on a touch app. So we built a complete cloud and touch apps strategy in terms of how we're going to address the market. We're also providing developers with tools to build applications across multiple mobile platforms. And one thing which is pretty interesting, and it's coming to India recently, is this whole, I'll call it a wave of digital publishing. So if you think about the US, it's huge. We recently had about 1,250 magazine titles published on our publishing suite, and that's growing like hot fire. And even some of the media companies in India are seriously looking at investing in that space with the proliferation of those devices.
Interestingly, digital publishing, digital advertising, a lot of this is suddenly seeing great interest, and I guess the consumer is permanently online.
Absolutely.
But life is about choices, and so is golf. And at what stage did you pick up the game?
My first time on a golf course was not something that I'd volunteered for. A friend of mine woke me up at 5 in the morning, and we were in Shanghai. It was like -2 degrees centigrade, and he got me out to the course. And that was really fun because it was a links course. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I remember shooting about 18 over par on a very windy day, and that got me really excited about the game.
Oh, yeah, surely. It must have got even your friend excited about, damn, for someone to start on a day one like that.
Yeah, it was great. I did happen to lose a couple of balls, though, and it was an expensive value proposition because I went without a jacket to the course.
As long as you came back with some money or a little bit of happiness, I guess.
know. Happiness, definitely.
Just a sense of how the game has helped you, and, at what stage did you start thinking that you're beginning to master it? Where would you like to go next with your game of golf? Since you're based in Bangalore, where do you play there?
I usually play the KGA. And the way I look at the game is, I think it's a game that brings a humility check to life. It kind of keeps you grounded. It just helps you detox, in my mind. So just coming to the golf course, looking at the greens, looking at the fairways around is a very, very, it's almost like meditation in a way. So I find that extremely relaxing. It also helps me concentrate and focus and maintain discipline. And I think a lot can be said about one's character with the way one behaves on the course. So,
how do you describe your own?
Well, I think I'm extremely passionate, love people, and I think I'm very straightforward. In fact, at times too straightforward for my own good. But I enjoy.
But that helps the business.
That helps the business. It helps being, keeping things in black and white, not having shades of grey, and just being who you naturally are.
So no one at home plays golf with you?
No one at home. My wife did try to pick up the game, but she didn't take a liking to it. She found it a little boring, just hitting a ball. So.
But with you traveling 250 days out of 365, that must be a hard task.
It is a hard task. So, balancing the family with the kind of work pressures that we have is always a tall order. And, hats off to my wife who actually tolerates it and, bears up with it. But I also think it's a secret to a happy marriage. We're less in each other's face.
It has 2012 and 2011 particularly. I'm talking about a little, the improved crisis scenario, right? We're not completely on the recovery zone, but we're somewhere getting there. Is this becoming a more buyer's market than a seller's market?
It depends on which part of the IT landscape that you look at. So there are a lot of infrastructure players that are today. There's more a surplus of on the supply side than on the demand side. But if you look at software and if you look at like you talked about apps, there's a huge amount of under-penetration. So wherever we go, there is opportunity, and we've usually found that if we can help create the right demand for that opportunity with the right infrastructure locally, that really helps.
Do you think that the rate of growth has somewhat plateaued even at Adobe, particularly in the Indian market context?
We've been growing steadily across the last couple of years.
And what's that growth rate?
Last year we grew globally at about 11%. And we've been doing that steadily year on year and have been innovating. So I think the biggest challenge for us today is predicting where the market's going to go, keeping ahead of the market with the right amount of innovation in our products, because our strategy is very simple. We want to create wow products that delight customers, and they become promoters of the offering by driving word of mouth.
NASSCOM, as you know, in general has talked about India's technology sector slowing down.
Yes.
Slowing down by a good 4 to 5%. Which is not easy in what is an already tough year. What do you think is causing this general sense of gloom even within India's value proposition technology and the volume, which is really typically outsourcing stuff?
When NASSCOM shared that figure, I believe it was more driven by the whole volume piece.
Okay.
And in terms of the overall market, the way we look at it, we work with Gartner closely, and they've kind of predicted the market to grow at about 9% this year. Which means it would end up being an $80 billion market, of which pure software is about $3.2 billion. So we see tremendous opportunity because there is money out there. It's about finding the right pockets and looking at delivering real-world value. I think gone are the days where people bought IT for just looking good within their organizations. It has to solve a real-world business problem, build efficiency. So every customer that we meet is driving us to a point of, show me how this is either going to make money for me or save money. So those are the two big ticket items. And you're right, when it comes to the volume demand, we are, there is a dip. But in terms of large spending within telecommunications companies, people setting up 4G, banks looking at, increasing their CASA,
banking.
and mobile banking and internet banking.
There's also the fear, while you're right, at some level it's a volume story at the moment, and there will be value in pockets.
Right.
I'm sure this value story is being repeated by Philippines, by Indonesia. We're already talking about how the I in the BRICS could well be replaced by Indonesia, and India would not be in the picture. Philippines is eating into our BPO piece with skills, with English, something that India had thought was its own edge.
It's true. So I think there are pockets where a couple of these countries have made big headwind, in terms of that direction. But there are also interesting changes in some businesses. So, for instance, take an example of media and entertainment. That business today, and you're a part of that industry, that business today is growing at more than 15 to 20% CAGR. It's going to be a $28 billion business in the next few years. And what's driving that business, interestingly, is video. So even something like post-production is around a $4.5 billion business in the next couple of years, which means that what happened in information technology a couple of years ago with a lot of outsourcing, that's what's happening now in the whole media and entertainment space. So we see a lot of companies setting up post-production shops, and we work closely with the film industry, and they're doing work on the biggest movies that you've seen probably on Hollywood screens right here in India. So there is that interesting shift where there are new businesses getting created within certain sectors.
Like Avatar had a lot of its stuff happen back in Bombay.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Avatar was made almost end-to-end on Adobe.
On Adobe. How good. I can
I'm sorry about the sales pitch. There's a lot of passion around that whole thing.
As a leader, what is your business mantra? What is your leadership motto?
It's a little cliche, but it's really about staying hungry and staying foolish all the time. So never be satisfied. It's never going to be, enough is never enough. So just go that extra mile. But keep it simple, yes. I'm a very straightforward and simple person that way.
Like in golf, I guess. If you don't keep it simple, you get the shots all wrong.
Tell me about it.
Okay, on that note, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Good luck with your golf and your career.
Thank you very much.